2 days later, I walked back into that same building in a suit worth more than most of their monthly paychecks, and by the time I left, the man who fired me didn't even have a desk to sit at anymore. But you need to see exactly how it started because they never saw it coming. Carla slid a manila folder across the conference table like she was dealing a winning hand of poker. "We know about your side business, Maya. You're terminated, effective immediately." I looked past her, straight at Derek, our VP of operations, watching his smug little smirk stretch wider. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just tilted my head and said, "Sounds like the perfect excuse to finally give my other company the attention it deserves." What neither of them knew was that my other company was the exact one keeping their corporation from going belly up. My name is Maya Reyes. I'm 31, and before I tell you what they did next, drop a comment and tell me what city you're watching from tonight. If you've ever had a boss steal credit for your work, hit that like button. This one's for you. Subscribe to Silent Revenge if you want to see how far a quiet woman with a plan can go. Now let's get into it. It was a gray Monday morning in Denver, Colorado. I barely had my coat off when 2 security guards appeared at my desk and pointed me toward human resources like I was a criminal being walked to a holding cell. As director of fleet operations at Ironclad Freight Corp, I was, for all intents and purposes, the highly paid janitor cleaning up after executive stupidity. Carla, the HR director, was already seated. Beside her sat Derek Lawson, a walking LinkedIn post, all buzzwords and zero substance, who got his VP title because his dad golfed with half our board. Carla opened that folder like it contained state secrets. "We pulled your network logs, Maya. You're running a private company on our time. That's grounds for immediate termination. I'd given that company 6 years. 80-hour weeks. Missed birthdays. Holidays spent fixing catastrophes Derek caused so nobody upstairs would notice he couldn't read a P&L statement if his bonus depended on it, which, ironically, it did. In corporate America, I'd learned something ugly. The person doing the work gets buried under more work, and the person who knows how to perform leadership walks away with the bonus. Derek built his entire career standing on my shoulders and never once said thank you. He leaned forward, pressing his manicured hands flat on the glass table, grinning like he'd just pulled off the heist of the century. "We're going to need your admin credentials to the Atlas system," he said. "Hand them over, pack your box quietly, and maybe we don't sue you for corporate theft." Atlas was Ironclad's crown jewel, an AI-driven freight routing platform tracking 5,000 trucks in real time, optimizing inventory and predicting supply chain disruptions before they hit. Ironclad was hemorrhaging money after years of terrible leadership, and Atlas was the only thing standing between the company and bankruptcy court. Derek thought firing me was his masterstroke. Get rid of the woman correcting his math in board meetings, take credit for Atlas, write it straight into a COO title. He had no idea Ironclad didn't own a single line of that software's code. He had no idea that my unauthorized side hustle was the company that held the exclusive license to it. I looked down at the termination papers. Non-disclosure clauses. Forfeited severance since I was fired with cause. I picked up the heavy pen on the table. "You sure this is the road you want to go down, Derek?" I asked, calm as still water. "That system is delicate. It needs specific oversight to keep running." Derek scoffed and crossed his arms. "Don't flatter yourself. We have an entire IT department. You're replaceable. Write down the passwords and get out." I didn't write anything down. I signed the papers, unpinned my badge, and set it gently on top of the folder. "You're right," I said, standing to my full height. "I should focus on my other venture. Good luck running Atlas without me checking in every morning." Carla looked confused by how calm I was. Derek just laughed and waved his hand at his phone. "Purity will walk you out. 5 minutes. Don't touch your computer." I walked back to my desk with 2 guards trailing behind me like I was dangerous. My coworkers stared at their screens, too scared of Derek to glance up. I packed a plant, a coffee mug, and 2 framed photos into a box. I didn't need to touch my computer or delete a single file. The trap was already set, and they'd walked straight into it with their eyes wide open. When the glass doors of Ironclad closed behind me, the morning sun hit my face, and for the first time in 6 years, something lifted off my chest completely. I set the box on the passenger seat and just breathed. They thought they'd thrown out a problem employee. They had no idea they'd just handed their empire's keys to the one person who could burn it to the ground, or save it. I hadn't decided which yet. If you're new here, this is Silent Revenge, and this is only the beginning. Stick around, because in about 2 minutes, Derek is going to make the biggest mistake of his career, and he won't even realize it until it's too late. My phone buzzed in the cup holder as I sat in the parking lot. The Ironclad employee app on my home screen grayed out. My corporate email refreshed and hit me with a big red access denied banner. Carla's team was fast. They wiped my digital footprint from Ironclad servers in under 4 minutes. They thought that was just standard offboarding. What they didn't understand was that they just severed the one connection holding their entire supply chain together. See, 4 years ago, while Ironclad's executives blamed warehouse workers for missed deadlines, I was up until 2 a.m. coding in my one-bedroom apartment. My grandmother, before she passed, left me a small inheritance, $40,000, with a note that read, "Build something nobody can take from you." That note stayed taped above my monitor for 2 years while I built Atlas from scratch with my college best friend Millionaire, a brilliant software architect who believed in the idea before anyone else did. Together we founded North Star Logic, a quiet little startup nobody at Ironclad ever thought to Google. Derek never asked how the internal optimization system he took credit for actually worked. He never read the licensing agreement stating Atlas was owned and licensed by an outside vendor. One public records search would have shown my name as founder and CEO. Instead, he assumed. And that assumption was about to cost him everything. Atlas was built with strict security protocols tied to my personal administrative credentials, a safeguard against exactly this kind of situation. The moment Carla's team scrubbed my employee ID from Ironclad's Active Directory, the sync between their servers and Atlas began to unravel. I opened a secure app right there in the parking lot and watched the data scroll past. No sudden crash, that would trip failsafes. Instead, something more elegant, a slow 36-hour decoupling. Every node, every pathway, unwinding piece by piece. In 36 hours, Ironclad's fleet of 5,000 trucks would lose all automated routing. Warehouses would revert to manual tracking from a decade ago. Ships at sea would lose their docking coordinates. Perishable freight would rot on the docks as the temperature algorithms went dark. And Derek would be sitting in his glass office with no idea why. I turned the key in the ignition and didn't feel a shred of guilt. I merged onto I-25 heading downtown toward my real office. Ironclad had exactly a day and a half to figure out their entire operation was quietly evaporating. Comment below. Have you ever seen karma work this fast? Now let's get to that family dinner, because trust me, it gets so much worse before it gets better. That evening, after a genuinely satisfying afternoon at North Star's headquarters, I pulled up to an upscale steakhouse in Lodo for my parents' anniversary dinner. I walked in already braced for the performance. My mom, Diane, sat adjusting her pearls like she was posing for a magazine cover. My dad, Gary, owned a small chain of used car dealerships and wanted everyone to think it was a Fortune 500 company. My younger sister, Brooke, 27 and permanently online, was busy taking selfies with a champagne flute. I didn't even get my napkin unfolded before my dad slammed his glass down. "I played 18 holes with Derek's father today," he said, voice low and sharp. "He told me his son had to fire you for running a scam on company time. Care to explain why you humiliated this family?" Of course. Derek's dad and mine belonged to the same country club. Gossip traveled faster than truth in that world. My mom leaned in, eyes narrowed. "You're an embarrassment, Maya. We raised you to be a professional and you throw away a good job to play around on the internet." I sat there looking at two people who were supposed to love me unconditionally and instead worshipped status like a religion. They'd happily paid $200,000 for Brooke's art history degree and her downtown apartment. I took out $58,000 in student loans and built everything myself. You don't understand, I said, keeping my voice level. Derek is incompetent. I built a company Ironclad depends on to survive. They made a massive mistake today. Brooke let out a sharp laugh. Please, Maya. Stop acting like a tech visionary. You got caught running a little internet hustle. It's honestly kind of sad. My dad pointed a finger in my face. Tomorrow morning, you put on your best suit, you drive to Ironclad, and you get on your knees and beg Derek for your job back. You want me to beg the man who stole credit for my work and fired me for it? I want you to fix this mess, he snapped. You'll apologize. You'll shut down whatever hobby you've been wasting your time on. You'll do whatever it takes to fix our reputation. My mom nodded along, arms crossed. You're 31, single, unemployed, and playing entrepreneur online. Look at your sister. She knows how to carry herself. I looked at Brooke, 27, completely dependent on our parents, married to a hard-working man she treated like a personal assistant. This was the golden child I was supposed to aspire to be. They had no idea my silly hobby was currently orchestrating the total collapse of the company that had just humiliated me. The waiter came to take orders. Brooke ordered a seafood tower and Wagyu steak without glancing at the prices. My dad ordered a $300 bottle of Cabernet. I ordered a house salad and tap water. I had zero intention of breaking bread with people demanding I grovel to the man who'd stolen my work. That's when Brooke leaned back, swirling her champagne. Oh, by the way, Daddy, I picked up the new SUV today. Custom white leather. Put the down payment on the card you gave me. My dad forced a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes, clearly stressed about money he wasn't admitting to anyone. Brooke turned her predatory little smile toward me. Such a shame you lost your job, Maya. If you'd focused on your actual career instead of your silly hustle, maybe you could afford a nice car too. Maybe take the bus to your unemployment appointments. I didn't bite. I sipped my water and looked instead at the one person at that table who'd stayed completely silent, my brother-in-law, Marcus Bennett. Marcus was nothing like Brooke. He grew up working class, put himself through a forensic accounting program working 2 jobs, and clawed his way into a senior position at one of Denver's top auditing firms. He saw straight through my parents' fragile country club act, and as a trained forensic auditor, he could smell financial recklessness a mile away. He knew exactly how much debt my parents were hiding to maintain their lifestyle. And he knew Brooke's spending was about to blow their whole world up. Dinner dragged on. Finally, the waiter set a leather check presenter in the middle of the table. My dad slid it toward me. Total $980. You're covering this tonight, Maya. Consider it a down payment on the apology you owe this family. I stared at that folder in disbelief. An unemployed woman covering a Wagyu dinner she didn't even eat. I opened my mouth to tell them where they could put that check when Marcus casually reached for the salt, and in the same motion slid his water glass 2 inches, right in front of my hand. Underneath it sat a folded cocktail napkin. I kept my face blank, slid my hand forward like I was adjusting my silverware, and pulled the napkin into my lap. Under the table, I unfolded it. Blue ink, hurried handwriting. Ironclad's financials are bleeding. Derek is drowning. Don't beg. I read it twice. Marcus's firm handled corporate audits across the logistics sector. If anyone knew what was really happening inside Ironclad, it was him. I looked up. Marcus was calmly cutting his steak, ignoring the tension completely, but the corner of his mouth twitched, the faintest knowing smile. He'd just handed me leverage. I folded the napkin into my purse, pulled a crisp $50 bill from my wallet, and dropped it on the table. That covers my salad and a generous tip, I said, standing and smoothing my skirt. I won't be paying for your steak, Brooke, and I definitely won't be begging Derek tomorrow. Happy anniversary. I walked out without looking back, my dad's voice rising behind me as he and Brooke argued over who was covering the check. If your family has ever made you feel small for chasing something bigger, comment I see you below. We're just getting started. Next, the boardroom finds out exactly who they fired. I didn't drive home to cry. I merged onto the highway toward downtown and pulled into the underground garage of Northstar's headquarters, a sleek glass building most of Denver had never heard of. I badged into the private elevator and rode up to the 12th floor. The reception sign read Northstar Logic in brushed silver letters. This was my silly little hustle. My parents thought I ran a blog from my couch. In reality, Northstar was a thriving multimillion-dollar tech firm and Atlas was our crown jewel. Ironclad wasn't my employer anymore. They were our biggest client, and their entire fiscal year depended on the merger contract sitting unsigned on my desk. Diego Ramirez, our lead developer, rushed in holding a tablet covered in scrolling red text. Maya, critical alert on the Ironclad network. Shar revoked the lead liaison credentials this morning, and the system flagged it as a hostile takeover. It's running the full decoupling sequence. They're locked out of the entire routing grid. The lead liaison was the internal alias I used to install Atlas without revealing my identity. When Carla deleted my employee profile, she unknowingly triggered exactly the protocol Diego was staring at. Are they fully disconnected? I asked, steady as ever. Diego nodded, scrolling through diagnostics. Completely severed. If we don't manually restore it in the next 36 hours, their entire supply chain collapses. Millions in stranded freight. He looked at me, waiting for the order to fix it. He assumed this was a technical accident. I walked to the window and looked out at the Denver skyline, thinking about Derek demanding my passwords. Thinking about my dad demanding I beg for a job that was destroying me. I turned back to Diego. Don't restore it. He blinked. Maya, if we don't restore the connection, they're looking at total network failure. I'm aware, I said. This wasn't a glitch. This was a decision their executive team made. They broke our service terms the second they cut my access. Let the protocol run. Don't answer their support tickets. Lock down the external servers. Diego slowly smiled as it clicked for him. This wasn't an accident. This was a strike. Understood, boss, he said and closed the door behind him. I sat down, pulled up the live dashboard, and watched red alerts multiply across the ironclad grid. My phone buzzed, Priya, my co-founder, calling from a layover in Austin. I saw the alerts, she said the second I picked up. Please tell me this is what I think it is. It's exactly what you think it is. She laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from 4 years of late nights and believing in something nobody else did. Let it burn, Maya. They earned this. This is the part where things get really good. If you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. You do not want to miss what happens in that boardroom. Let's keep going. Tuesday morning hit Ironclad like a freight train derailing, pun fully intended. Dispatchers arrived to blank screens. Within an hour, 300 trucks sat stranded at a hub outside Colorado Springs. Warehouse managers screamed into radios because the AI guiding their forklifts had simply vanished, replaced by manual protocols nobody under 40 knew how to run. Derek sat in his glass office sweating through his shirt, staring at monitors full of error messages while his phone rang off the hook with furious regional managers. He called Northstar's support line 4 times. The call rolled straight to voicemail. By noon, Carla burst in clutching a stack of legal binders. What is going on? Regional managers are threatening to walk out. Northstar locked us out, he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. I can't reach their CEO. Nobody's picking up. Carla flipped frantically through her binder. We draft a cease and desist. We blame this on a malicious software failure and sue for breach of contract. She had no idea she was the one who'd caused it all. That afternoon, my personal cell buzzed with my dad's name, unusual since he usually saved his lectures for weekends. I answered, and before I could say hello, he was already screaming. What is wrong with you, Maya? Derek's father called me. He says you hacked their network out of revenge. Do you understand the legal trouble you're bringing on this family? I sat down calmly on my office couch. Derek's lying, Dad. Ironclad revoked my access and the system reacted exactly how it was built to react. I didn't hack anything. Don't lie to me, he snapped. You're going to march down there and fix whatever you did, or I swear, Maya, he paused, switching to the one weapon he'd always relied on. My grandmother's trust fund, the one she'd left both Brooke and me, with him as the legal executor. If you don't fix this, I'm dissolving your half of the trust and giving it all to your sister. She wants a vacation property and your share will cover it nicely. He expected me to panic. He still thought I was a broke, unemployed woman clinging to her only safety net. He had no idea he was talking to someone whose real net worth had just crossed 8 figures. Do whatever you want with the trust, Dad, I said, voice perfectly even. Buy her the house. I don't need your money. I never will again. I hung up and blocked his number before he could finish screaming my name. Comment Team Maya if you think she made the right call. Now, this next part is the twist nobody sees coming. Keep watching. Wednesday morning, my secure line buzzed, a number only 3 people had. Maya, it's Marcus, came the voice, hushed and urgent. I'm standing in a server room inside Ironclad right now. Investors had triggered an emergency forensic audit after the outage, and Marcus's firm had been contracted to lead it. The universe has a sick sense of humor. The man investigating Derek's collapse already despised him. Before we talk about Derek, Marcus said, we need to talk about Brooke and your parents. I'm filing for divorce Friday morning. He'd spent months quietly auditing his own finances and discovered Brooke had opened fraudulent credit lines using his name, and that my parents had helped hide it. They're broke. Your dad's dealership chain is drowning in debt. I have zero loyalty left for any of them. That includes Derek. Then the real bombshell. The board chairman flew in from Dallas this morning. They're holding an emergency session, planning to fire Derek by end of day, unless he proves the outage wasn't his fault. Check your email. I just forwarded you something. I opened my inbox. Derek had sent an internal memo to the entire board, claiming the outage was a malicious cyber attack orchestrated by a disgruntled former employee seeking revenge, me. He was requesting the board pursue criminal charges to shift the blame entirely off himself. He's desperate, Marcus said. He has no idea how the software actually works. He thinks you personally hacked them from your living room. Let him, I said, feeling something cold and certain settle over me. He's digging his own grave. The chairman just demanded Derek get Northstar's CEO on the phone, Marcus added. They're forcing a face-to-face. Be ready, Maya. I thanked him, hung up, and looked at the wall of red alerts still flashing on my dashboard. 36 hours were almost up. I stood, smoothed my blazer, and got ready to walk directly into the fire. This is it. This is the moment. Like this video right now if you've been waiting for this, because Maya is about to walk into that boardroom and Derek has absolutely no idea what's coming. At exactly noon Wednesday, 36 hours since they'd walked me out, I stepped out of a black car in front of Ironclad wearing a sharp charcoal suit, not the exhausted employee they'd discarded on Monday. I walked through the marble lobby, past dispatchers screaming into dead radios, to the private elevator. The same guard who'd escorted me out Monday froze, recognizing my face. I badged in with a visitor credential from Northstar servers and walked straight through. The executive floor was dead silent. I walked past my old desk, past the empty cardboard box still sitting there, straight to the glass boardroom. Inside, the board sat around a mahogany table. Derek stood near the projector, drenched in sweat. Carla clutched her binder like a life raft. I pushed the doors open without knocking. Every head turned. The board didn't recognize me. Derek did, and his face went white. "Security!" he shouted, pointing at me like I was an intruder. "She's not allowed in here." The chairman, a sharp older man who'd flown in from Dallas at dawn, raised one hand. Enough. The room fell silent instantly. He looked at me, my posture, my suit, the folder in my hand, and clearly recognized someone who wasn't there to beg. "Who let you in, young lady?" I walked the length of the table and set a business card in front of him. "Nobody let me in. You requested the founder and CEO of North Star Logic. I'm here." The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. Carla's pen clattered to the floor. Derek's jaw went slack. The chairman studied the card, then looked at me with something like respect. "Explain what happened." I laid it out, how Derek had spent 5 years taking credit for my work, how Carla's team had unknowingly triggered a lockdown by deleting my credentials, how Ironclad had essentially unplugged its own supply chain because Derek was too proud to understand how any of it worked. I pulled up the source code on the projector, highlighting my encrypted signature buried in file after file, undeniable proof of who actually built everything he claimed as his own. "As of this moment," I said, "Ironclad has lost roughly $2.7 million in 36 hours. The room exploded. Board members shouted over each other, demanding Derek's resignation. The chairman slammed his hand on the table. "What's it going to take to turn this back on? Name your terms." "An $8 million emergency restoration fee wired by end of day," I said. "A new 5-year contract at a 25% increase over our current rate. And the immediate termination of Derek Lawson and Carla Simmons with 0 severance effective right now." Derek nearly choked. "That's extortion. You can't." The chairman didn't even look at him. "Derek, Carla, you're both terminated. Leave your badges on the table." Carla broke into tears and dropped hers immediately. Derek stood frozen until security walked him out, still shouting that he was a vice president, that people worked for him. Nobody stopped to listen. Within 20 minutes, the contract was signed. I entered my override command, and the dashboard flooded green as Ironclad's network roared back to life. I closed my folder, shook the chairman's hand, and walked out, an 8-figure contract heavier and finally fully vindicated. Comment chills if that boardroom scene gave you goosebumps, because it's not over. Her family is about to show up somewhere they were never invited. By Friday, the story hit the financial news. A local tech founder had landed a massive logistics contract, and Derek Lawson had been fired for gross negligence. My name was public. I knew what was coming next. Sure enough, my concierge buzzed my penthouse that morning. "Miss Reyes, 3 guests are demanding access. A Mr. and Mrs. Reyes, and a young woman claiming to be your sister." I told him to send them up. Toxic families run on a predictable cycle, and I knew this chapter by heart. The scapegoat finds success, and overnight she's rebranded from disappointment to opportunity. The elevator opened, and my parents and Brooke stepped into my penthouse, silenced by the skyline view. My dad forced a proud smile. "I always knew you had it in you, Maya. You get your drive from me." 48 hours earlier, he'd threatened to steal my inheritance over the phone. Brooke crossed her arms. "So this is where you've been hiding? You let us pay for dinner Monday while sitting on millions?" I set my coffee down. "You're not here to congratulate me, Dad. You're here because your dealerships are underwater, Marcus just filed for divorce, and Brooke owes tens of thousands in debt none of you can pay." My mom rushed forward with fake tears I didn't return. My dad, realizing manipulation had failed, pivoted to business. "Let's put this behind us. I just need a bridge loan, $300,000 wired by Monday." Brooke shoved past him, sobbing. "No, help me first." Marcus locked our accounts. "I'm $70,000 in debt and the banks are threatening to sue." I looked at the 3 of them, erasing every cruel word from that steakhouse dinner like it never happened. To them, I wasn't a daughter anymore. "I was an ATM 3 days ago. You called me a disgrace," I said quietly. "You threatened to steal my inheritance. Now you want me to write checks?" I shook my head. "The answer is no. Not today. Not ever." That's when the elevator chimed again, and Marcus walked in holding a briefcase. He set a thick stack of divorce papers on my coffee table with a thud that silenced the room. "I finished the forensic audit last night," he said, looking at Brooke. "You bankrupted us funding a lifestyle we couldn't afford. And I found proof your parents helped you hide it from me for 2 years." Brooke screamed and collapsed onto my couch. My parents stood frozen, their carefully built world crumbling in real time. Marcus pointed to the elevator, and without another word, my family filed out, defeated and exposed. I locked the building access permanently behind them. The silence that followed felt like the cleanest air I'd ever breathed. If you've ever had to cut off toxic family for your own peace, comment "I did it too," you are not alone. Now here's how it all ended. 6 months later, the fallout was permanent. My dad's dealerships collapsed under years of hidden debt. The state liquidated his golf membership and his house to pay creditors. My mom was quietly frozen out of the social circles she'd chased for decades. Brooke, stripped of Marcus's income and my money, moved into a small studio and took a retail job folding sweaters 8 hours a day. Derek got blacklisted across the logistics industry and ended up cold-calling office managers to sell printer toner, watching my company dominate headlines from a cubicle. North Star logic exploded. Within 6 months, we landed government contracts and international partnerships nobody thought a company our size could touch. I sat in my corner office overlooking the Denver skyline, surrounded finally by people who respected real work. Marcus, freshly divorced, joined as CFO. Priya ran product. Diego ran engineering. Even Jordan Kessler, the rival exec who'd tried poaching the ironclad deal during the chaos, called to say he respected how I handled it and asked if North Star was hiring. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is getting fired, rejected, and thrown into the cold. That's exactly where you learn how to build an empire nobody can ever take from you again. Have you ever had a toxic boss or a manipulative family member underestimate you? Tell me how you proved them wrong in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to Silent Revenge, and turn on notifications. Next story is even wilder. See you then.